Hello everybody, my name is Dawn Campbell, Director of the IAPC&M, the International Authority for Professional Coaching and Mentoring. And today I'm here with the lovely Lynda Monk. Hello Lynda.
Hi Dawn, thanks for having me. Hi everyone.
Very welcome. Now, I'm super keen to learn more about this because Lynda is the Director of International Association for Journal Writing. Now, I've got my brand new journal here ready. I've been journaling since I was 10 years old at boarding school, but in the last couple of years, I've kind of lost my way a little bit. So I've got myself a new journal because I'm going to have new inspiration for tonight, and I'm looking forward to learning more. So I'm not going to read your whole biog, Lynda, because people have read it and they want to learn, and so I think we'll just jump straight in and get started. So over to you, please.
Great, thank you, Dawn. Well, hello everyone. My name is Lynda Monk and I live on Salt Spring Island, which is in British Columbia, Canada on the West Coast. It's always kind of fun to know where we're connecting from in this big world. Thanks for taking the time to tune in and listen on our topic today of the transformational power of journaling for coaches and our clients. I'm a registered social worker and I'm also a certified coach. I did my coach training through the Coaches Training Institute, and I've been coaching with individuals and groups for the past 15 years. And I have a true passion for journaling as one of the tools that we can use in our own lives for self-care, as well as in our transformational and growth work with our clients. Some of you may know me from the International Coach Federation. I do co-lead one of the community of practice, the Life Vision and Enhancement Community of Practice, and it's always wonderful to be together with fellow coaches and change agents. So in terms of our time together today, what I'd like to do is really take you into the art and heart of transformational journaling. And one of the best ways to do that is to give you an experience of journaling. And I will teach you a 5-step life source writing journaling method that I developed a number of years ago. So I hope you have a pen and piece of paper or your journal handy, because we will go to the page together during this time. And then, of course, we want to look at how to bring and introduce journaling into your work with your clients. I had the privilege of hearing Deepak Chopra speak a number of years ago at a 21st century learning conference in Halifax, Nova Scotia, Canada. And he said lots of amazing things, but one of the things he said that really stayed with me, and I often think of this in my coaching work, is that attention energizes and intention transforms. So I invite you just to take a moment to call into your mind, your heart, what you really hope to get out of this webinar, and just really hold that to orient your learning as we go. The moment we bring our intention to something, we already bring our process of learning alive and our process of curiosity alive as well. And I do this in my coaching sessions as well. And I also do this when I journal. I take a moment to pause and consider, what do I hope to get out of this writing time right now? What do I hope to get out of this coaching session? What do my clients hope to get? Because that really helps point our energy in directions that can create growth and change. So thanks for considering that. So journaling. Many of us have experiences with journaling. Some of us wrote when we were teenagers or maybe even before. We might have a sporadic journaling practice. Maybe we go to the page when we're distressed about something or trying to solve a problem. And then when things are smoother, we get away from it. There's all kinds of journaling journeys, and there's no one right way. But what are we talking about when we talk about journaling? Journaling is a way of finding narrative. It's a way of constructing our story and really getting tuned in to what our own lived experiences are, both our inner experiences and our outer experiences. And it's also a practice for really exploring the relationships in our lives. So narrative, or the art of storytelling, and journaling is a storytelling art, the story of our own lives. is one of the ways we make sense of our experience. It's one of the ways that we can create a cohesive narrative or a cohesive sense of who we are and who we're becoming. Journaling can be done on our own, which is typically the way it's done. And I'm also going to introduce you to journaling in groups. I've written a book on the topic, co-authored a book called Writing Alone Together, and I do bring journaling into a number of my group coaching programs. So I'd like to give you a sense of how that might look in your own work. Journaling, above all else, is really a reflective practice. It's that powerful pause that we take in our lives to come home to ourselves, to listen within, to write about our thoughts and feelings. And as such, reflective practices are really known to help us, and this is a wonderful quote by Marlena Field and Donna Martin. Marlena's, you may know Marlena, she does a lot of work in the area of body-centered coaching and trains coaches in that methodology. And they say that reflective practice invites you to rediscover your creative potential and to find more ways to be nourished by what you do in work and life. And I've found over the years that journaling really is a powerful practice for enriching my life and also for enriching my work and my business. I've made many decisions through the process of journal writing that I really might not otherwise have made, because we see our own patterns, our patterns of thought, our patterns of choice, our ways of being. They all get reflected back to us from the page, and they help us have a stronger relationship, not only with ourselves, but as I always think of it like a kind of pebble in a pond, that anytime we engage in something that deepens our own self-awareness, such as journaling, it's putting us in a different type of relationship with others as well, because we bring that very mindful self-awareness into all of our other relationships, including in the world we live in. And there's a lot happening in our world right now, being in the midst, obviously, of the COVID-19 global pandemic. Also with the very powerful global protests that are going on around Black Lives Matter. And these larger global issues also put us in relationship in the world in different ways. And so journaling really can stretch across all relationships in our lives. So what is transformational journaling, or what is sometimes called therapeutic journaling? This is a great quote by Kate Thompson. She's the author of a book called Therapeutic Journal Writing: An Introduction for Professionals. And she says that therapeutic journal writing implies the conscious intent and deliberate attempt to write in ways which will produce change, healing, and growth. And what's important about this is that there's two elements to it. It's reflective. We're thinking about things, pondering, wondering, being curious. We're exploring ideas. And it's also reflexive, because ideally we're integrating the awareness that we gain from our journal writing practice into our lives, into a greater understanding of ourselves, into a greater sense of our own relationship with ourselves in the world. And so there's always that moment of what are we gaining, and then what are we doing with that new awareness? What actions might we be taking? And this is really at the heart of why it can be very powerful in our coaching, because of course we're always working on that continuum of raising awareness, insights, and then moving that into inspired action in our own lives as coaches, and of course supporting our clients with the same. I just want to share a little bit about what the research shares in terms of who really benefits from journaling. And of course, journaling is very accessible We don't need a lot of fancy tools, although those of us who are passionate journal writers, we often do have a lot of pens and a lot of journals and a love for paper and stationery and bookstores. But we really do need only simple tools for the practice. Of course, a piece of paper and a pen, or a computer if people want to write online. But there generally is this sense of valuing personal growth and introspection. There's a willingness for that. And I've worked with lots of people bringing journaling out into their own healing and growth work. And sometimes if people are very resistant or afraid to really explore their own inner worlds and thoughts, it can get in the way of getting the most out of journaling. That can kind of be a bit of an obstacle. And sometimes when I see that showing up, I just invite people to write into resistance. Where do they notice resistance in their lives? What does it help them with? What does it give them? What might it get in the way when resistance is strong? And so resistance can show up with journaling too, because of course anything we do to grow ourselves can bring that sense of resistance or maybe even inner critic up. And that's true in journaling as well. People who want to experience a very holistic approach to their wellness tend to resonate well with journaling. People who are interested in their emotional, physical, psychological, and spiritual health and see the creative arts, including journaling, language arts, as a tool for supporting their well-being. And the research in the field of applied writing and expressive writing shows, like anything, not all people will benefit from journaling. Many will, but it's like anything we embark to do. There's ranges in terms of benefits for many reasons of how people will benefit from it. The other is to keep in mind that not all writing is healing. So for example, if there's always a negative focus in the writing, just a lot of rumination, a lot of kind of going over the same problems over and over again, that isn't necessarily healing. There is a cathartic benefit to getting our thoughts and feelings out, including the difficult ones. But if that's where we stay, and we just keep circling the drain, so to speak, with all of the negative focus, that can in fact trigger things like rumination, anxiety in some cases. So that doesn't necessarily translate out into a healing and restorative experience through writing. So we want to ensure there's a balanced perspective in our writing and that we capture the good stuff too, and I'll say more about that in a few minutes. The other is that it can be re-traumatizing. So for example, if someone has been through a recent trauma, writing about it too soon can sometimes just be too vulnerable, and there hasn't been enough restored sense of safety to really benefit from then looking at it through the lens of journaling. And if there's reflection without that insight that I talked about, that willingness to say, so what, now what? What have I learned from writing, and what new insights are here? So if a person just keeps writing and doesn't really pause to gain the new nuggets of self-awareness or insight that's there, they might be missing some of the healing and transformational power of journaling in their lives. And that's where, as coaches, we can help people do that piece, really glean some of those insights through the powerful questions we ask and the engagement that we bring to what's surfacing for our clients and for ourselves, of course. The other is if the writing's too controlled, if it's too rigid, is that very honest and earnest self-expression. And in that way, we just want to get it down, get it out, and not be hindered by worrying about the feeling of someone going to mark our writing or have a critique of it. Whatever we write is right with journaling, because we're always the experts of our own experience. So those are just some thoughts about who can really benefit. And the only way to know if one benefits from journaling is to, in fact, journal and pause and say, what impact has this had? What have I gained from this? How am I feeling from doing this? And people become their own um, uh, wise guides on how well journaling is helping them. I just want to say a little bit about how I really found my way into journaling being not only a key part of my life, but now, after many years, a very key part of my work in the world as a coach as well. I'm, as I said, a registered social worker, and in the first decade of my social work experience, I worked in very high stress, high trauma work. I worked in child welfare. I did a lot of work in the area of suicide intervention and prevention. I worked as a medical social worker in an ICU and emergency department of a hospital. And during this time, I became very curious about how does doing work like that, where emotional labor is really at the core of the occupation, and where serving the needs of others and supporting them, often in very difficult times, is the heart of the work. How does a professional do that work and stay well, and not burn out and not become overwhelmed with some of the emotional content of the work? And so when I did my Master's of Social Work degree back in the mid-90s now, so quite some time ago, I devoted it to looking at burnout prevention. And what I found was that in the research, it was sharing that when we have a reflective practice, something we do to explore our own thoughts and feelings and to actually express them in healthy ways, non-judgmental ways, it has a healing quality to it and is cited as something that can help prevent professional burnout. And as I was doing that research, I had a light bulb moment, because I realized that in my own experience, I, without knowing it, actually was using journaling as part of my self-care as a social worker. And this was before I became a coach. And I had been a journal writer, like Dawn mentioned, as a young, in her experience as a young girl and teenager. And it was something I'd always kind of gravitated towards. And then in my 20s and in my early years as a social worker, I kind of moved in and out of it. I would go to it when things were kind of intense, and then I'd sort of step away from it. But I noticed that when I would write after very difficult days or very difficult situations in the work, I felt better. I felt more balanced and energized and able to come fresh to the next day and the next crises that were part of the work. And so when I was doing this research, I all of a sudden put the dots together and realized that my journal writing practice had in fact been very essential to my own resilience and self-care as a social worker. And so that really got me curious. I thought there must be more about this, and I started looking for books and articles and research on the healing power of writing. And what I found is that there was a whole body of work, 30, 40 years of study and experts in the field who'd been making this connection. And writing was proven to help heal stress and trauma, including vicarious trauma or indirect trauma that is common in helping professions, for example, and others. That it really is linked to improved health and well-being, and it can support resilience. Wellness connection was so strong that I was just so excited about it. And I left in 2000, so 20 years ago, I left frontline social work practice and subsequently did my training as a coach and started doing workshops in the area of burnout prevention, care for caregivers. And in them, I would always include a section on journaling. And I would take people to the page and guide them through some journaling, much like I'll share with you in a few moments. And People in the evaluations of these workshops often made comments about the journaling, how much they liked it, how much that it helped them. And over time, I eventually thought, what if I kind of turned the volume up and made journaling even more central to what I was offering? And eventually that led to the creation of my business, Creative Wellness, which was all about writing to heal, and eventually led to the opportunity to acquire the International Association for Journal Writing, which is a membership community and learning community for journal writers worldwide. And so this thread of journaling was shaping not only my life, but my career and my businesses as well. These are just some of the health benefits that have been proven in the research. There's many of them. And you can see that they go across many dimensions of our well-being, our emotional well-being, physical, psychological, spiritual, and it's very holistic in terms of the benefits that can come from journaling.
Lynda,
So I won't read all of.
Could I just ask you to share your screen again, because you disappeared for a split second, and stopped.
Sure, thank you. I will have to just end this and come back in to do that. So just give me a second.
I think there must have been a power just for a split second.
Well, we do have a bit of a windstorm, and that can cause little glitches in our power. That might have been what happened. I'm sorry, everyone.
Thing, but just to let you know,
is it there now?
No.
Oh, okay, because I just stopped and I can see it. Let me come out again. Yeah. Dawn, what do you see now? Anything?
No.
Okay, because I can see everything. Hang on just a second here. Do you see me on video?
Yes.
Yes?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Let me try again. Just thanks for your patience, everyone. Do you see it now, Dawn?
No.
Okay. I'm going to actually end the I'm going to end the show altogether and see what happens. Do you still see me on video?
Yes.
Okay.
If you put slides.
And did it come up?
See them.
Did it come up now?
No.
Okay, let me just see what happens. Did it come up now, Dawn?
No.
I'm not sure what's happening because it's here at my end. I'm still on Zoom. And what I'm going to do is just come out and just give me a second here. I'm just going to try to share screen again in case something happened there. Can you see anything now, Dawn?
Back.
It's back?
Yep, that's it.
Okay, great. And do you see a journaling has proven health benefits slide?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, great. Thanks. Thanks, everyone. I always figure we just push enough buttons, something's bound to happen. Thanks for letting me know, Dawn, because I could see everything here.
You're welcome.
So as I was saying, there are these health benefits across many dimensions. So I won't go through all of these, but you can see that emotionally, things like reduce stress and improve relationships, and physically, there's been some wonderful research done, some groundbreaking research that was done by a gentleman named Dr. James Pennebaker, and he has a book called Writing to Heal. And I won't go through it in great detail, but his research showed that people had improved immune function after writing, less visits to doctors, reduced blood pressure, and it was the whole control group and met research protocol and so forth, which is just fascinating. And there's been a lot more work in the last number of years in the whole neuroscience area around how journaling can in fact help with creating new neural pathways and so forth. So psychologically, people can experience more clarity, and spiritually, just deeper sense of meaning and purpose and vitality. And I can share with you, Dawn, a reference list that has lots of books that capture some of this that you're welcome to share in your community as well if you'd like to.
Yes, please. Thank you.
So what I'd like to do is give you a chance to experience life source writing, which is a 5-step journaling method. And as we do this, to really just consider writing as a way of coming home to the self. It's very grounding and centering and balancing, and it's true for us as well as our clients. And we won't spend a long time with this. We'll just do a kind of couple minutes of free writing, but I'll take you through the life source writing 5 steps, and you can see them here. And the best way to learn them is by doing. I'm just going to pause to make sure there isn't anything in the chat that I should be aware of here.
No, nothing.
We're good. Okay, great. And we will have time for questions and some connection together here in a few moments. So life source writing is something I developed to give a bit of a container for our writing practice. If we go to a yoga class or a meditation class or engage in other practices that we do over and over again to support our well-being, there's a process to them. So for example, we don't show up at a yoga class and just all of a sudden go into warrior pose, for example. We arrive, we get our mats, we settle in, we connect with our breath, and move into the work of the practice, taking it deeper as we enter it, and then of course coming out the end with a completion. And so I wanted to give a similar structure to our writing practice. How do we actually show up with intention and greet our writing practice and greet ourselves, go into the writing, and then come out the other side to completion? So that is the essence and the arc of life source writing. And the first step is to arrive, to really bring that mindful awareness. Here I am now for this time for myself, time for my writing, and just settle in. And people do lots of different things around this. Sometimes people light a candle or put on music or get a cup of tea or, have their favorite place they write and have a bit of a sense of ritual around it or routine. So this is really about bringing our mindful attention to the here and now and saying, here I am to write. The second step is to relax and to really engage that mind-body connection. Writing is a physical act, it's an emotional act, and we really want to in our mind, our bodies, because when we're relaxed, we're more able to write. We're more able to tap into our true, authentic voice. And of course, the writing itself can help us relax. So there's this reciprocal relationship going on between relaxation and writing in any form of creative self-expression. And then, of course, we want to write. And in this case, I'll share a prompt with you to help with that step. Step 4 is a reflection. This is known as a feedback loop or an inquiry step where we pause and look at our writing and ask any kind of question to deepen the takeaway. And you'll see what I mean when we give this a try here in a moment. And the last step is to affirm and really bring completion to your writing with the energy of gratitude. So let's go ahead and do this. This is a good time to have your pen and paper, but we're going to just do step 1 and step 2. I'm just going to guide us through a brief guided meditation. This is very similar to what I do when I facilitate writing circles, when I bring my coaching clients into a writing exercise. So I'll just give you a little taste of that now for your own experience. So if you're comfortable and I'm doing the same, if you'd like to close your eyes or lower your gaze, and just bring your attention to your breath. You don't have to do anything special with it. Just notice your breath entering and leaving your body, giving you life. And just notice your breath breathing you. Notice your own vitality and aliveness in this one moment, on this one day. And slowly bring your attention to the surface beneath you, the chair or couch, whatever you might be sitting in right now. And just allow your physical weight to drop a bit more fully into this surface. Notice without judgment what it feels like to be supported by this surface. And just notice any thoughts you might be having in this moment. You don't have to follow them or judge them, just notice them. Noticing is something all by itself. Just notice any feelings you might be having in this moment. Any sensations, physical sensations in the body. Notice the temperature on your skin. And continue to stay aware of your breath as you arrive fully to this one moment. Allowing yourself to feel grounded, supported, relaxed, and present. And slowly, when you're ready to raise your gaze or open your eyes, and we're going to transition into a 2-minute timed writing, free writing. And I've just put a couple of journaling prompts here to help you get started. One is, when I slow down and relax, I notice. You can just pick one or the other of these, don't have to write from both. Or, during this time of the COVID pandemic, the following things bring me comfort and calm. So just pick one of those two prompts, write it down, and begin to respond to it. See where it takes you. And we'll write for 2 minutes. I'm just going to set a timer for you. And enjoy. Stay connected with your breath as you write. Writing begins with the breath. And begin to wrap up, just completing the sentence that you're on. You can always come back to this and write some more later. Okay, now I'm going to take you into the next step, which is to pause and reflect. And I'd like you to pick from one of the following journaling prompts, and you'll write for another minute in your response to this. So the first one is, what I notice about what I wrote is, and the second is, what I feel about what I wrote is. Just pick one or the other, whichever one resonates with you. What I notice about what I wrote is, or what I feel about what I wrote is. And just keep writing, keep your pen moving for another minute. There's no right or wrong. Okay, and just finish up that. Just finish with whatever sentence you're on. Again, you can always come back to it. And lastly, the fifth step of life source writing, I invite you just to take a moment and quietly to yourself bring completion to what you just did with the energy of gratitude present. So you might say something quietly to yourself like, I'm grateful for this time to write and reflect. Anything at all, just like a final bow to your writing and to yourself for taking the time to write. Okay. So I know that's a quick experience of life source writing, but you can see there's an entry point to going in, a pausing and reflect, and a coming out the other side. It just gives a little structure. And each one of those steps in and of themselves to arrive, relax, write, reflect, and affirm, they all have value in and of themselves. And when you put them together, it really gives you a holistic way to work with your own journal writing practice and deepen it and really keep growing it and making it your own. And of course, supporting clients to do the same if that's something that's part of your work or you might like to have as part of your coaching work. If you have any questions about that process, when we open up here into questions, I'll gladly respond to them. I just want to share a little bit more around some tips for what makes journaling transformational. So I know you're coming out of your own brief writing practice there, kind of back into this um, listening and learning mode versus doing and learning mode. So one of the things is to write about feelings. So some people keep more of a diary style journal. You know, today I did this and I did that and I had this for lunch and I dropped my kids off, and that's fine. And capturing our daily lives in our journals is very enjoyable and valuable. But when we look at journaling as a transformational and personal growth practice, we really want to go beyond the surface details of our life, doing this and doing that, and into how are we feeling about what's going on? How are we feeling in our days? The other is to write often. It's good to if things we might want to say and reflect on. Ensuring a balanced perspective, and I mentioned this briefly earlier, we don't want our journals just to fill up with all the painful moments of our lives, all the rough stuff and the breakups and the hurts and the problems. We also want them to be a place where we construct the lives we want to live, those lives and those moments that are filled with joy and happiness and our vitality, because what we focus on grows. And so in our journals, we want to really bring that balanced perspective as well and help it truly to be a tool for co-constructing, co-creating the lives that we want to live. It's helpful to write about what you don't know. That's where that whole area of powerful questioning and curiosity and dancing in the moment, all of these core tools in our coaching toolkit can really come in. So I'll often start a journaling exercise by writing a question and then exploring that question. So we don't always have to be writing about what we know. We can be writing about what we wonder about, what we're curious about, what we hope might happen. Engaging the body and the mind and the breath. Writing really is a holistic practice, and so it's good to stretch and move around and stay in our breath and stay in the moment. There's a whole book written called Writing Begins with the Breath, which is a beautiful book. And there's also books written that combine yoga and journaling and other holistic things like journaling through the chakras and so forth. And so there's lots of really fun ways we can access this holistic approach to journaling. Journaling is never about performance or perfectionism. It's really about the process. And sometimes we have to quiet those perfectionist voices. Am I doing it right? Am I saying it right? Am I writing about the right thing? And just settle in and trust ourselves, trust our voice, trust the process, and just really make it your own. I love using my journal as a place to also celebrate, to capture. We've all heard of gratitude journals, writing in the morning or any time, night, day, what we're grateful for, being able to capture successes and accomplishments, and just really allow that to be a space where we connect with all of the bounty and beauty in our lives as well. I think it's important to keep creative journaling fun. If journaling becomes a chore or one more thing to do or one more thing that feels like it's something we have to get right, it's not going to be nearly as enlivening and enriching and fun as if we bring that real creative joy to it, so we can actually get that from it as well. So it's not always fun. Sometimes we're writing about tough stuff and hurts and stressors and perhaps traumas and so forth. But how do we also hold it lightly? People often use mixed media. They'll have painting and collaging, and there's whole magazine publications on art journaling. So really people can come at this through words and images, and there's lots of ways to enliven our journals and our journaling practice. So what about integrating transformational journaling into our coaching work? Some tips on that is to remember that not all journaling is transformational, as I've said, and it's not a one-size-fits-all. Some people don't like journaling. They have maybe had negative experiences with it. One of the common things I hear are people who are really nervous to write for fear that they'll be exposed or someone will read their journals. And that's a real consideration, because like all emotional self-expression, we have to consider the safety around it. And so encouraging people to keep their journals in a safe place, let people know, my family knows my journal is a very private, sacred place to me, and it can be out on our kitchen table or wherever, and I know that my family wouldn't read it, that they respect that as a private place, and nor would I read their journals. My husband does some journaling, and my teen boys, every now and then I dip them into it. They're not avid journal writers, but they have gone to the page from time to time, and I would never read their journals. And so, one, respecting other people's journals, and two, respecting our own. And knowing that that can be a very powerful experience if people have had that. For example, I offer a 6-week group coaching program, which I'm running right now. We're in week 5, called the Transformational Writing for Wellness Salon. And I've run it for a number of years now. And quite some time ago, I had a woman in the group, and she was 76. And she shared that she had never journaled since she was 16 years old. She'd always wanted to. She loves writing. She came from a family of writers. She was a professional curriculum writer in her career, so she did lots of product writing of documents and learning manuals and so forth, but she had never come back to writing for herself. And she was in the salon because she wanted to. She wanted to try again, and she really wanted to write a memoir for her children and grandchildren, and felt that journaling would be a good place to start to kind of come back into her own voice and stories. And she shared that she hadn't written since she was 16 because her father had read her journal when she was a teen girl, and it had had really negative consequences for her, and she always felt scared. She never felt safe to write for herself again. So we want to remember when we introduce journaling to our clients that they may have a pain story or a silencing story that's related to previous experiences with journaling, and we need to, help support them through that to come afresh, come anew to their writing practice now, and help create that structure of safety. We also want to support our clients to write about their thoughts, their feelings, the actions they're taking flowing from journaling. And to remember that self-care is always an important part of transformational writing. We're always in charge of what we write. We should never be forced to write about a subject area we don't want to write about. We should never be forced to share our writing. In my writing circles, I always talk about choice. Everyone does share their writing. I've only ever had 2 people pass out of hundreds of people, probably thousands now. And so I'll say that they can share what they wrote, because we're writing in community in that process. They can share a word or a line of what they wrote, or they can share what was it like to do the writing, if they'd rather reflect on that. So choice is always important. That keeps it as an empowering practice. It helps with it being safe and so forth. There's 3 key things to keep in mind with journaling, especially bringing it out to other people. And this is from the wonderful work of Kathleen Adams. She's written many books on journaling. She's an expert in the field. And she created what's known as the journaling ladder. And to keep in mind, structure, pacing, and containment. And there are different journaling techniques. There's books filled with them. And things like free writing, where we just go to the page and write whatever we want, is the least structured, the least paced, and the least contained. So it's at that top of the ladder. And that's often what professionals will ask people to do. They say, oh, keep a journal. But the journal, the blank page, can be a very daunting place for people. And sometimes they need some help, what to write about, how to use different prompts and techniques to really come at their journaling. So something like a sentence stem, which is what I offered you. I gave you a beginning of a prompt to write from when we did our writing together. So that's at the lowest end of the ladder. That's the most structured. Then I gave it a time, 2 minutes. So that paces it and it contains it. So things like the type of journaling methods you use, how long you write, and so forth, give these structure, pacing, and containment. And it is important to consider when you're bringing journaling out to other people. So why journaling and coaching? We know that coaching is all about deepening the learning and forwarding the action, and journaling can help us do that. It's empowering, it helps us gain perspective and greater clarity, which is always parts of what we're trying to do in our coaching work. We're supporting people to tap into their own inner ways of knowing, their own inner guidance systems. It can help people achieve their goals and notice limiting beliefs or patterns that may be holding them back from the successes that they might be trying to achieve in their life and their work. We can really access our own resilience. Through journaling, we see that we survive things. I've been doing some of this with my clients lately who are really feeling a lot of despair during COVID, is getting them to write about a time in their life that was difficult that they got through.
Sorry, Lynda, we just had a blip and lost you again.
Okay, so I will fix it in the same way I did last time. Just give me a moment. I just have to remember what I did. Do you see it again, Dawn?
You do.
Okay,
Perfect.
great. You're welcome. So in terms of some option engaging journal coaching with your clients, really having them, for example, they can reflect on what stood out from their journaling without having to share their journaling with you. You can invite them to share their journaling. Again, they're always in choice and we're never critiquing the writing. It's not like they're writing a novel and they're asking for feedback on their writing. It's their own personal process. And to really always keep in mind as a coach this awareness to action continuum. What's coming up in their journals that gives them information for their lives, for their choices, for their own inspired actions. It's really where journaling can be a true and deep companion in our coaching work. I love the work of Janet Harvey. She's an MCC, and she talks about coaching mastery, and I really think that we can support our own coaching mastery through transformational journaling, because journaling is a way to increase our confidence and competence with what Janet Harvey calls the artful pause that generates professional mastery. So our own, she also says that our own mindfulness or contemplative practice, and journaling is a contemplative art when used in the way I'm describing with you and sharing with you today. And it reminds us that in the stillness of a quiet mind, all things are possible. And of course, in coaching, we're helping people to tap into their infinite possibilities for their lives, their work, and so forth. Just briefly, I mentioned using journaling in groups, and this is something that I have used in organizations. I've used it as part of burnout prevention work with helping professionals. Co-authors of this book, Ahava Shira and Wendy Judith Cutler, they've used it out in the schools with teenagers. It's been used as part of community building practices. And our book is called Writing Alone Together, Journaling in a Circle of Women for Creativity, Compassion, and Connection. And it's written by 3 women, hence the title. But many men have used this practice as well and engaged with it. And it has 4 key elements. One is writing freely, which is the going to the page and doing the writing, often from prompts. Reading aloud, so where the journal writer will choose to share what they wrote from the writing that we did together in circle and community. Listening deeply, so as the listeners in the circle, our job is to listen deeply with compassion and without judgment. We are bearing witness. We're seeing who that person is through the storytelling and journaling that they share. And I integrate what we call the WAT practice, the acronym WAT, into many coaching programs. I facilitate one of our member benefits with the IAJW.org, our International Association for Journal Writing, is a monthly writing circle. So people literally come together over Zoom once a month, and we engage in this writing alone together practice, and it's very powerful. And I've really seen people just have so many new insights, and also are deeply touched by the sharing, and we learn from one another's stories. And so it really is a storytelling practice in community. I love this quote by Christina Baldwin. She's on our journal council, and I've studied with her on a memoir project I'm working on. And she says that there's a Spanish proverb which says, "There is no road. We make the road as we walk." I would say the same thing about journal writing. We make the path as we write. So I really hope wherever we start with journaling, it's like meditation. Every time we sit down and go to our practice or go to the mat in yoga, whatever practice we might be engaged in, we always come to it fresh in the moment. And so we're always making our own practice as we go and deepening it. And lastly, before I'm going to stop there actually for some questions. I'll just share a free gift and want to let you know I'm excited. I just signed, along with Eric Maisel, a wonderful creativity coach, a book deal last week with Routledge, and we're writing a book called Transformational Journaling for Coaches, Therapists, and Clients, a complete guide to the benefits of personal writing. And it will come out in 2021, and we have over 60 contributing authors to this book, and I'm really excited about it. So I hope it's something that coaches will really benefit from. And if you're interested, I have a free gift called the Transformational Journaling Kit for Coaches, and it has a number of elements you can see here on the screen. And you can get that at iajw.org/transformational-journaling-kit. So I'll just pause there and ask what questions or comments you might have. And I guess, Dawn, that goes in the chat in webinar, doesn't it? People can't come on here a lot.
Exactly.
So any comments, questions, thoughts you'd like to share? I'm here looking at the chat so I can see whatever you'd like to put in.
Well, firstly, Lynda, I would say I found that very inspirational because, as you know from the conversations we've had, I've been journaling since I was 10. Went to boarding school and I got my first faux leather bound, boxed, gilt-edged. I mean, I can just remember actually receiving that diary and also reading the diary of Anne Frank, and that led me on to journaling. And so I've done that for 50 years. But a couple of years ago, because I was so busy at work, it became, as you said, a chore. And because I was too controlled and a perfectionist in my writing, I had a journal for goals and a journal for affirmations and a journal for, I had, at the end, I had 9 different journals. So I had these piled up on the side of my bed. And at the end of a busy day working, it suddenly dawned on me that this was a chore and it wasn't fun anymore. So this has been sort of a light shone back on it, just to be relaxed and more in the flow and more intuitive and just see where it goes. It kind of reminds me of Natalie Goldberg, who's writing down the bones. I love her work. It's just right. Just learn to dance and just go with the flow of the pen. So thank you very much, and I hope people are writing down their questions in this as we're talking. So yeah, very good, thank you. What would you say, I noticed in fact that the presentation cut out for a second around the control, so I didn't get everything that you said about the control. I think it was on the first slide, there was a list of 4 or 5 things, and the bottom one on the slide was too controlled. Very quickly, could you just recap for that while people are writing down their questions?
Sure. Well, if we're too controlled in our journaling, if we're too concerned about getting it right, or we're very rigid in our approach to it, or we come to our journaling and we already think we know everything, we already have the answers, we end up weakening what's very powerful and at the heart of transformational journaling, which is our willingness to be curious. Just like in coaching, curiosity is a cornerstone, and in journaling, transformational journaling, it's a cornerstone as well. So we want to really trust the process of writing. We want to allow ourselves to write about what we don't know, to be curious, to let the writing flow, and to trust that the writing itself takes us into inner terrain that we might not access without it. Because there's a lot going on in our bodies, our brains, our emotions, our cognitive processes when we engage our language centers. Because language is connected to memory, and the writing itself is what taps us in. So to just suspend some of the rigidity we might have and allow the mystery and allow the art of writing to take us on its own journey.
Okay, yeah, that's very helpful. Thank you. I also thought the question, so what now? When you've done your writing, so what now? That was lacking for me, and that's a good tip that I've picked up from today. So thank you for that. Well,
And that doesn't mean, excuse me, that doesn't mean every time we write, we have to kind of be in that so what, now what, because the writing is something all by itself. But it is helpful every now and then to just look at what awareness am I gaining from my journaling and what action might I take. So for example, yesterday I was journaling and I was really noticing just feeling such a heaviness from COVID and things in the world. And we had some very tragic losses in our local small community last week. And I realized that I need to do something different, that I need to start, spending less time on Facebook, less time reading news headlines, and actually create some space for more play, more fun, more whimsical experiences to kind of counter some of the heaviness. And it was through my journaling that I just really tapped into this heavy feeling, and I thought, okay, well, what am I going to do about that? I need to do something different to shift this for myself. And then I started writing about, well, what could I do? And I thought, well, instead of, I used to wake up in the morning and I'd start my day with meditation and journaling and my morning coffee. And since the COVID pandemic, I start my day checking the news, seeing what's going on. And it's like, okay, I need to go back to some of those practices and shift some of these other. And so the journaling helped me see that. And then it helped me explore what I want to do instead. So that's just an example.
and that's why it's such a great coaching tool, because people can write things down and then it's right, how are you going to do this, or what did you used to do that you can revisit. It just puts things
Yeah.
back in perspective, doesn't it?
It does. And then we can take it a step further. So for example, later in the day yesterday out in the garden, I was having a glass of wine with my husband and I was sharing with him a bit of what came to me in my journal. And we talked about it together and we decided, well, what were some things we could do together? So just this morning we booked a hotel and we're going to go on a date night and just go and have some fun, because it's been heavy with kids at home 24/7 and the business implications of COVID. And so we can extend our insights for ourselves out into our family. And there's an example how journaling impacts ourself in relationship with others. And so, and on it goes. Yeah.
And could you just also recap what is the fundamental difference between journaling and keeping a diary?
Well, for some, there isn't any. It's just a change of how they language it. But diaries typically are capturing the day. I did this, I did that. It's like a log of our lives. Whereas a journal done in this way, an expressive writing, is really about writing about our thoughts and feelings, not so much all the events or the happenings, that's all in there, but more of that deeper self-exploration through the writing process than just logging what's going on.
Okay. I was really quite delighted to hear you talk about the creativity side of it, that it can be in pictures, it can be colors, we kind of made me think of mood and vision boards and Mandela healing with pads and pens that adults are so into at the moment. So it's making that leap that it doesn't have to be very serious academic pen and writing type thing, which puts a lot of people off, doesn't it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And there's lots of room to play, and you use colored markers. And I'm reading a book right now for a book review that I'll be doing, and it's called The Power of the Other Hand by Lucia Capiccioni, and she's written lots of books on creativity and the inner child and journaling. And her body of work is all around writing with our non-dominant hand, and how a whole different voice, a whole other part of our brain is accessed. Because of course, if we're right-handed, for example, that our right side is connected more with the left side of our brain. And if we write with the other hand, we're tapping into more of what the right side of the brain has to offer. And language is different in both sides, memory is different in both sides, and it's fascinating. And she suggests literally writing down a question with our dominant hand, getting a different color pen, and writing our response to that question with our non-dominant hand, and having a dialogue and seeing what comes. And it is fascinating.
Fun. Yeah.
Teresa, I can see a question here about recapping the journal ladder. I'll just go back here. Can you still see my slides, Dawn?
Yes, we can.
I'll just go back to the ladder. Thanks for your question, Teresa. Do you have a specific question about it, or do you just like me to speak of it again? And you can just type into the chat, Teresa. I just want to make sure I get this right for you. Okay, I'll just say a little bit about it. So it's around the general review. Thanks, Teresa. So the journal ladder was created, as I said, by Kathleen Adams, Kay Adams. She's written many books on journaling. And because she teaches a lot on journal therapy, so similar to journal coaching, it's always around using journaling for transformation, healing, growth, and what are the elements we need to do that well. And three key things are considering the structure of the writing. So is it just a free write, a blank page, and off the person goes? That's the least structured. That's why it's at the top of the ladder here. You can see it's a progression from bottom to top. So free writing is the least structured. It's the least paced, and it's the least contained. Whereas something at the lower end of the ladder, something like what we did today, which was structured because it had a prompt, it used a sentence stem. You can see we move up the ladder. It was timed. You had 2 minutes for the first part and 1 minute for the second, so a total of 3 minutes of writing. So that paces it. If I gave you that prompt and said go write for an hour, that'd be a whole different experience, a much more wider berth, a much more deeper experience than writing for 2 minutes. So you can see that there's many different journaling techniques. There's things, sentence stems are just the beginning of a sentence. So right now I feel ... Right now I notice ... and off you go. There can be questions. So the types of questions we ask in coaching, powerful questions, make great journaling prompts. There can be timed writings. So setting a timer and writing for 5 minutes, 10 minutes, however long. There's listing types of exercises. So one of the exercises I do in my program is have people write 50 things they're grateful for. And if they get to 50 easily, to push it to 75. So lists are good journaling techniques. Dialogue. You can write between different points of time. So what would my 8-year-old self have to say? My future self have to say? I use this a lot with the future self guided meditation as a coaching tool, and then give them journaling prompts where they can have their future self speak, and so forth. So the more guidance you give, the more specific the activity, the more timed it is, and so forth, you're influencing the experience of the writing. So if people haven't journaled before, for example, just giving them, say, go journal, not giving them any time period, any guidance, any prompts, that's really unstructured, unpaced, uncontained. It's just that free, which is wonderful, and what most experienced journal writers do on a regular basis. Free writing is what I do most days. But if we want to help them have structure, pacing, and containment, we need to give some guidance. How long are you going to write? What kind of prompts are you going to use, and so forth. I hope that helps. And that helps create the emotional safety so that people can engage in self-expression, feeling safe to do so, and feeling like it has some control, because control is part of safety, and so forth. I hope that helps. And of course, with journaling, we want to be trauma informed as much as we can as well. So, you know, people need to be in choice about if they want to write about something very painful, that they have permission to stop, or if it's too emotionally stirring, to step back and come at it again, and these sorts of things. Choice matters, safety matters, and so forth. Cool. You're welcome. Are there any other questions before we wrap up? Thank you, Teresa. I'm glad it was informative. I'm just getting here. I just want to mention we have the IJW, our Facebook group, our journal writing tribe, and everyone is welcome. And I post regular tips in there and regular journal writing prompts that you can use for yourself as a coach or with your clients. And you can find us at facebook.com/groups/journal writing tribe. And I would so love it for you to come and join us. There's lots of fellow coaches in the group, and lots of journal writers, avid journal writers, new journal writers, so everyone's welcome. You're welcome, Nadine. Thank you.
I must join that because I subscribe to your newsletter, and your husband's a beautiful writer as well, so I've enjoyed the last 2 newsletters I've got. I must join the Facebook group page.
Oh, good, Dawn. I'd love for you to be there, and you'll meet some fellow coaches there too, and
definitely
can share about.
I know everybody's just had a little writing exercise, but we always like to end the CPD and business building webinars with 60 seconds of silence. Just an opportunity to reflect in your CPD journal what you got out of today's session, because if you leave it until tomorrow or the weekend when you catch up with your log, you won't be able to remember. So we're just going to have 60 seconds of silence now for you just to very quickly capture the key points from Lynda's lovely presentation. Starting now. Okay, thank you everybody. And Lynda, your co-author Eric, he's going to be running 2 webinars for us in July. So all the keen writers online will be able to meet Eric, and some dates for you. That's Wednesday the 8th at 5 p.m. and Wednesday the 22nd at 5 p.m. And you'll be able to meet Lynda's co-author Eric and learn even more. So thank you, Lynda. It's been a pleasure, and I really do appreciate your generosity of spirit in sharing with us at the IAPC&M. And any questions, you can see from that slide there how to get in touch with Lynda directly. But everybody, thank you very much for your participation. Keep writing, and we'll meet again soon. Thank you. Bye-bye, everybody.
Thank you, Dawn. Be well, everyone.
Stay well. Bye-bye.